Our presenter tonight is Mrs. Lizna Odwahi. Lizna, or Liz Odwahi, is a public affairs specialist for the Social Security Administration, Southeastern Virginia. Lizna began her career with the administration in 2002 and has worked in many Social Security offices in the country. As a bilingual claims specialist, including the Dallas region for the Houston and Dallas offices, and in the Atlanta region for Atlanta, Georgia office. Lizna has routinely assisted with special projects and also partnered with the Richmond Public Affairs Specialist Team to support SSA's mission. Lizna has received numerous awards for her dedication to the mission of the agency, including a commissioner's citation. She is well known for her energetic and upbeat "we can do it" style, even in the most trying of circumstances. So at this time, I'd like to turn the program over to Ms. Lizna Odwahi from Social Security Administration. Lizna.
Hi, I'm here. Thank you so much for having me today. Sorry, just logging in a little bit later than scheduled. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me. I've been with the administration for such a great introduction as well. I've been with the administration for almost 19 years now, and you can just call me Liz. So I just wanted to go ahead and let you know you're with a person that has a lot of experience. I've worked in Atlanta, I've worked in Texas, I've worked in Houston and Dallas in Texas, and then I've also worked in Atlanta, Georgia. I've also worked all around Richmond. So I've been in Richmond downtown, all different parts of Richmond area, and then also now I'm in the Tidewater area doing public affairs. So now I'm outside of the office doing outreach and education. So like I said, you're with an experienced person. So also, the other thing I wanted to also address before we get started is updates during COVID, just like what Ms. Lenice addressed. During COVID, we are going to keep our offices suspended for walk-ins, okay? But we're doing everything like normal. So if you need to file a supplemental security income claim, or if you need to file for disability, for retirement, for Medicare, for spousal benefits, widow's benefits, you name it, we're still available. We will make appointments over the phone, so it will be a phone appointment. We had already done phone and in-person appointments, but now everything is just phone, so it shouldn't be a big difference. So we're doing everything over the phone, and if you need to update anything, you can contact the local office. The local office is still open in the sense that we have a skeleton crew coming in to do mail, obviously, and then they go ahead and they associate the mail with the person that's supposed to be doing it. And then also we are answering calls. So we always have somebody who's doing claims and people that are answering calls and doing adjustments. So nothing's changed. All services are still available like normal. And again, you can make an appointment for any type of claim that you want to make. It's just going to be over the phone, not in person. Checks are still going out. Nothing's changed. We're still doing adjustments. Now, to contact the local office, you're going to have to use a link, and that's going to be our Social Security website. You're going to notice that on the bottom of every page, you're going to see our home website, which is socialsecurity.gov or ssa.gov. So if you go to www.ssa.gov or socialsecurity.gov, that's our home page. To contact the local office, you would go to socialsecurity.gov/locator, and you're going to put in your zip code. So once you put in your zip code anywhere in the United States, it'll show you the office phone number and address. You can call the office Monday to Friday, 9 to 4. So we're still open. We're open the rest of this week. We've been open, but it's just like we're not coming. You can't come in unless it's dire need, unless it's a homeless situation, or if it's a really need type of situation. But for the most part, we're doing everything over the phone. Nothing has changed. So rest assured, anything we go over today, you can contact the office about. All right, so as you can see, it's talking about the My Social Security account. And this is the link for the account, which is www.ssa.gov/myaccount. If you want to file a claim like disability or SSI, you can even do that online too. You can do a lot of these claims online, retirement, Medicare, spousal benefits, all of that. But it's good to have an account. So because if you lose your Social Security card, and you're over the age of 18, you're a US citizen, and you just need a replacement social security card, you can actually go online to your account and you can actually ask for a social security card and it will be mailed to your home. So that's a big one. Most people don't realize that's been happening for a while. It's been utilized more during COVID. But all you need to do is create your account. You have a good driver's license or a state ID. You're a US citizen over the age of 18, and you just need to replace your social security card. Anybody can do that. Okay, so that's a big one. And there's a lot of different things you can do with an online account. If you're receiving benefits, there's a lot of things you can do. Now, how you would open an account is this way. You would visit the socialsecurity.gov/myaccount. You would select sign in or create an account. You would provide some personal information to verify your identity. You're going to create a username and password. And then every time you log in, you'll get either a text message or an email, whatever you choose, so that we make sure it's you. Okay. Now the next slide talks about if you don't receive benefits. If you're not receiving benefits, as I mentioned, if you're over the age of 18, a US citizen, you can get your social security card replaced. If you applied for benefits or applying for benefits, you could do that online. You could check the status of your claim online. Another phone call you don't have to make to the local office, right? Log in, you'll be able to see the status. If you get denied, you can file your appeal online. That's 60 days of if you got denied. If you need a letter stating that you're not receiving benefits for any other type of benefits that you're filing for, you can get that letter online too. And you can get your personalized retirement estimates. So if you remember getting those green and white statements in the mail, which we're going to go over, you'll be able to go ahead and get that online too, which is important, not only for you, but also for your family. Now, your social security statement was the last. Okay, we're going to go right into the statement. So if you remember seeing this, it was mailed to your home before, right? We used to mail it to you every year to make sure that you check your records to make sure that your benefits will be correct, because Social Security is based on what you worked and what you paid into, your FICA taxes that you pay into with every paycheck. And that's important because you want to make sure that it matches, because this is going to be what your benefits will be in the future. Now, the next slide is a screenshot of your benefits, right? So, no, the previous slide, I'm sorry. So this is your benefits. So this is going to say if you applied for retirement, if you applied for disability, what your family will receive. Because remember, Social Security is not just for you. It could be for your minor child or a disabled adult child or even a widower. So or your spouse. So we have a lot of different benefits tied in. That's why you want to track your earnings, because it's not only for you, it's for your family too. You want to be proactive, not reactive. And the next slide is your list, right? Your history. This is great. I've had a lot of people come back and say, we loved checking this out online because it brought back some memories, right? And it's good to just have it, because I even have an online account. I'm in my late 30s, but I have an online account because in the future, when I retire at 62 or whenever I retire, I'm not going to remember what I made in 2020 or 2021, right? So I check it every year. I check my W-2 and I make sure it's right, and then I put it away, one and done, right? And it's easy. And again, if I need a Social Security card replaced, or if I need to play with some calculators, I have all of that access to me, right? If I file for disability, how much I'm going to get. I have all of that information in front of me. Now, the next slide, this is it, is supplemental security income and, SSDI and SSI. Now, SSDI and SSI are acronyms that are unfortunately used interchangeably, right? SSDI is Social Security Disability Insurance, and SSI is Supplemental Security Income, right? So we're going to go over the difference. As you can see, Social Security Disability Insurance, that's an insurance. So the more you put in, the more you get. That's where you get your green and white statements. So when you see the section that talks about disability, that's going to be your SSDI, okay, your disability insurance, because you paid into FICA, which is Federal Insurance Contributions Act, right? So that's SSDI. Now, SSI is based on need. So that's not insurance, that's based on need. It's actually tax-free. So Social Security Disability Insurance are payments that come from the Social Security trust funds and are based on a person's earnings. It's an insurance that workers earn by paying Social Security taxes or FICA taxes on their wages. It pays benefits to disabled individuals who are unable to work, regardless of income or resources. Now, I'm going to go ahead and talk about unemployment. During COVID last year, I would get numerous questions about if I can apply for unemployment while being on Social Security disability. I would say yes, because it's not based on need. Your disability insurance is what you worked and what you paid into. It's an insurance. So it is not based on need. You could apply for unemployment and you could get Social Security disability. If you get another VA check or something like that, that's fine. When it comes to Social Security disability insurance, we're looking at your wages. So if you're working, there's a limit to how much you can make per month. But if you're not working and you're receiving another check, that's fine. So I definitely wanted to highlight that. And benefits for workers and for adults disabled since childhood must meet insured status requirements, which I'm going to go over. The previous slide, I'm still going over supplemental security income. I'm sorry. So supplemental security income are payments that come from the general treasury fund, not the Social Security Trust Fund. SSI payments are not based on a person's earnings. A child can get SSI. A baby can get SSI. Anyone over the age of 18 can get supplemental security income as well. Anybody can get SSI, even a baby. It's a needs-based public assistance program that does not require a person to have a work history. It is based on need. So again, unemployment does affect supplemental security income. Other income does affect supplemental security income, but it doesn't affect regular Social Security disability insurance, okay? It pays disabled workers who are unable to work and have limited income and resources, and it helps with children and adults in financial need. We look at parents' income if a child is under the age of 18, and we look at limited resources as well. And again, it will help you with Medicaid. In most states, even $1 worth of SSI, supplemental security income, will help you with Medicaid, okay? The next slide now talks about the definition of disability. The Social Security Act defines disability as a person who cannot work due to severe medical condition that has lasted or is expected to last a year or result in death. That does not mean you wait a year to file. It just means that it has to expect to last a year or death. So it has to be a long-term type of condition. The person's medical condition must prevent him or her from doing substantial gainful employment, work that he or she did in the past, and it must prevent the person from adjusting to other work. So that means that there is a limit to how much they can make and if they can go back to work, okay? The next slide talks about when should I apply for disability benefits. As I said, you want to apply as soon as you become disabled, okay? Processing an application for disability benefits can take 3 to 5 months, so it could take a long time. We may be able to process your application faster if you can give us more additional information. What we're really looking at are names of your doctors, your hospitals, phone numbers, your meds that you're taking, medical records. If you have any, if you don't, that's okay. We can get it. You will sign a release form so we can get that. So, any type of test results that you might have, like lab results, anything like that. Your work history, if you're an adult. So what we're looking at are those types of things. Now, the next slide talks about how do I apply for benefits, right? And you can do it online. That's our link to do it online. Or you can also give us a call at 1-800-772-1213, or you can use that locator link. If you look at the bottom of the slide, you'll notice it says ssa.gov. If you do /locator, you'll be able to go ahead and see that if you put in your zip code, you'll be able to actually use that. Now, the next slide talks about disability. So once you come into our local office, your local office, or you do it on the phone or you do it online, we're going to ask you a lot of questions. We're going to see if you qualify for regular Social Security disability insurance, meaning if you worked and paid into it enough, or you also could qualify for supplemental security income, so we'll do the financial screening. Once we're done with that, we send it over, we contract out to DARS. So we actually contract out to the Disability Termination Services Office, which is the state. So the state agency completes the initial disability determination decision for us. Doctors and disability specialists in the state agency ask your doctors for information. So that's the information you're going to tell us about and about your condition. They'll consider all the facts in your case, and they'll use medical evidence from your doctors, hospitals, clinics, or institutions where you've been treated. They're going to ask your doctors about when your condition began, how your medical condition limits your activities. It could be school or work, depending on how old the person is, medical test results, and what treatments you've received. Now, they're also going to be asking your doctors for information about your ability to do work-related activities, such as walking, sitting, lifting, carrying, remembering instructions, because your doctors don't decide if you're disabled, right? We have to decide that. The state agency staff may need more medical information before they can decide if you're disabled. If your medical sources can't provide needed information, the state agency may ask you to go for a special examination. We prefer to ask your own doctor, but sometimes the exam may have to be done by somebody else. So as Social Security, if we ask you to come for an exam, we'll pay for those travel-related costs, okay? And again, so we're here to help. And again, this is good because you'll know that this is what we're asking. Now, the next slide talks about how a disability determination is made, okay? And I'm going to throw a statistic at you. 50% of our cases get denied. 50% of disability cases get denied. So you have a chance, right? You have a 50-50 chance, right? Now, what are we looking at when we're looking at these decisions? Number one, are you working? And if you're working and your earnings average more than a certain amount each month, we generally don't consider you to be disabled. This year, we're looking at $1,260 a month. Or I'm sorry, it's $1,310 a month, $1,310 a month gross. So if you're working and making more than $1,310 a month, you're not eligible for benefits. Again, $1,310 a month before taxes, before anything is cut. Okay, that changes every year. So that's why 1260 was last year. This year it's 1310. Number two is if your medical condition is severe. For you to be considered to have a disability by Social Security's definition, your medical condition must significantly limit your ability to do basic work activities. And what we mean by that is lifting, standing, walking, sitting, and remembering for at least a year. If your medical condition isn't severe, they're not going to consider you to be disabled. If your condition is severe, they're going to go to step 3. Step 3 is, does your impairment meet or medically equal a listing? Now, what do you mean by listing, right? Well, I have good news for you. This is available online. So if this is all public information, our list of impairments describes medical conditions that they consider severe enough to prevent a person from completing that $1,310 a month, regardless of age, education, or work experience. So if you go to our website, socialsecurity.gov, or you just type in Blue Book, BLUEBOOK, Blue Book, you'll be able to see it. It's for adults and children, mental and physical. So you'll see all of our listings. It's all public information, okay? Now it says, does your impairment meet or medically equal? So that means that it doesn't necessarily have to meet an exact listing. Most people have asked me, is this enough information? I always tell people, list it all. Tell me everything. If you have high blood pressure, if you have diabetes, whatever you got going on, list it all. Because you might not meet a condition, but you might equal a listing, right? So again, best advice I can tell you is that, remember, it has to equal one too. So it doesn't necessarily have to meet one. So tell us everything. If the severity of your medical condition meets or equals the severity of a listed impairment, they're going to decide if you have a qualifying disability, right? If it doesn't meet, then we're not going to move forward. Number 4 is, can you do the work you did before? This is why we ask you about your work history. Okay, so we want to know if you could do the same work you can do before. And 5 is your education. Can you do any other type of work, right? So we're trying to look at, this is why we ask you about your education, your age, your past work experience, all those skills, if you've done any type of vocational rehab. So this is your 5-step process, okay, on how they look at your condition. So you're getting a cheat sheet into all of this. Now, the next slide talks about, we're going to tell you your decision. Obviously, we're going to send you something in the mail, or if you're online, we'll send it to you online on your account. If you're approved, you're going to know the amount of your benefit. And if we'll ask you to do more questions, or if you're not approved, we're going to explain to you, why you've been denied. Now, if you don't agree with it, you can file an appeal. As I said, you could even do your appeal online. You have 60 days to do one. So definitely go ahead and take advantage of that. I always tell people, file your appeal. The first one is called a reconsideration. The second one is called a hearing. A reconsideration is when it goes to somebody else at the Disability Determination Services, and somebody else will reconsider it. If you get approved, you get all your money, everything from the time you filed. definitely do an appeal. And then if you get denied at the reconsideration, you could do a hearing, and that's when you go in front of a judge. So again, definitely do it, because if you get approved, you'll be able to go all the way back. If you get denied and you did not do an appeal, then we can't go back. You're going to have to start from scratch. So you have those 60 days to do it, okay? The next slide talks about benefits for family. As I mentioned, Social Security disability insurance is not just for you, it could also be for your family, okay? So the next slide. Perfect. It could be for a spouse who's 62 years old that hasn't worked that much. Maybe they were taking care of you, right? And so they need to file for their retirement. They could get benefits at retirement off of your record when they turn 62. It could be for a spouse at any age if they're carrying a child who is under 16. It depends on how much they're working, though. Or any divorced spouses if they were married to you for more than 10 years. So a spouse can get it. A child can get it. Of course, minor children can get it if a parent is receiving benefits. If they're under the age of 18, if they're still in high school, they can get it until they're 19, or if they're not married and disabled before the age of 22. So what do I mean by that? This is something that I want you guys to pay attention to. When I talked about the benefits, right, I talked about the green and white statement. It had a section for family. It also, then in that child section, you can also do disabled adult child benefits. Okay, this is why it's imperative for you to check your records. When a child turns 18, okay, with the Supplemental Security Income Program, we no longer look at parents' income. So a lot of parents who have a child that might qualify because of their condition will come in at 18 or file for benefits or do it online at 18, because at that point, we're no longer looking at parents' income, no longer looking at parents' resources. We're only looking at that child as an adult, and we're going to see if they're disabled or not and what their income is and what their resources are, okay? So let's say they get approved before the age of 22, because you have until 18 to 22. Okay, if you get approved before the age of 22 years old as a child, and they're still receiving benefits, and now they're 40 and now you're 62, okay, and you're thinking about filing for your retirement, you can actually tell us, I have a child that is disabled and is receiving supplemental security income benefits. They were receiving benefits before the age of 22, and now you're not only filing a claim for yourself, but you're also filing a claim for your disabled adult child. It's called DAC benefits, disabled adult child benefits. So again, it is important for you to track your earnings, not only for yourself, but also for your children, because if you have a child that could meet that qualification, that's good. That's more money for your child. And even after you pass away, your child will continue to receive survivor benefits off of your record, right? If you're getting those crazy calls telling you your Social Security number is suspended, please disregard those calls. That is not Social Security. Your number never gets suspended. It stays yours even after you pass away, because family members can get survivor benefits, okay? A spouse can, children can, and disabled adult children can. And that's a big relief to most parents, because that helps them know that their child will be taken care of even after they pass away, right? So again, it is important to understand that and think ahead, because whenever you file for benefits, and if you have a child that's still on benefits, you definitely want to let us know so we can take that extra claim. That's a lead, okay? The next slide talks about working while receiving benefits. You can work and you can get benefits. As I said, I mentioned the blue book for the doctor stuff. Now there's also something called the red book, and that's where you hear about the Ticket to Work program and you hear about the work incentives. Now, if you have a person who is working and they're receiving benefits, we won't count everything dollar for dollar if you need to use some of that money for an impairment related work expense. For example, if there's transportation costs because the person can't drive, then we can actually go ahead and deduct that transportation cost and not count it towards their wages. So we have a copay for a medicine. If you need a medication and that's going to help you allow to work, then we won't count that copay amount, okay? We encourage work. We do. But like I said, Ticket to Work is a program that will allow free vocational rehab, free training for those who want to work that are receiving benefits, either Social Security benefits or supplemental security income benefits. So again, we definitely want to look at that red book as well. And also you'll have the link for the blue book as well. You want to let us know if you do have a job, if you do get a job, and you can report those wages under your My Social Security account, or your the 18-year-olds, the beneficiary who's working their Social Security account, if you create their account, of course. Now, the next slide talks about supplemental security income. So we're going to transition right to SSI. And the next slide talks about requirements for getting SSI. Supplemental security income, you have to have limited income and resources, 65 or older with not a disability. If you're under 65, you have to have some sort of disability, either blind or have a medical condition that keeps you from working and is expected to last 1 year or result in death. The rules are different for children in the sense that we look at school records and we look at parents' income. The next slide talks about requirements for getting SSI. So we're looking at your income, which is money you receive, such as wages, Social Security benefits, pensions. Income also includes such things as food and shelter. Resources, things you own, such as real estate, bank accounts, cash, stocks, and bonds. And of course, you have to live in the United States to receive benefits. If you're not a U.S. citizen, but you're lawfully residing in the United States, you can receive SSI. If you're a refugee or an asylee, you can get it. If you are a green card holder, there are some requirements, but usually if you haven't been in the United States before 1996, you're not eligible. So you can get it if you're a refugee or an asylee or a U.S. citizen. Okay, so you can get it in that sense, but you have to be in the United States. If you leave the United States for more than 30 days, you're not eligible for the program. Okay, no matter who you are, a citizen or not. Now, the next slide talks about income. Income is looked at in two different ways. No, the slide before then, sorry, income. So we break apart income in two ways. We have earned income and we have unearned income. And earned income is wages, self-employment. If you're working, we're looking at your net after any expenses, small payments from a sheltered workshop. Now, earned income is calculated differently. We're not looking at the first $85 a person makes in a month. So if you're making $100 a month, we're going to give an example of $100. Of $100, we're going to subtract $85 because we don't count $85. So that leaves you with 15 bucks. What we do is we take that $15, we divide it by half, which is $7.50. So we're only counting $7.50 of the $100 that you've earned before taxes, before anything is cut. We're going to take that $7.50 and we're going to subtract it from whatever your SSI check is. If it's $750, we're going to subtract $7.50 from it. So that is how earned income is calculated if you're working. Okay, then we go to unearned, which is your checks, right? If you're getting a Social Security check, an unemployment check, or a pension. Like I said, it doesn't matter if you're receiving regular Social Security disability, we don't count that. But with supplemental security income, because it's based on need, we have this calculation. So let's say you're getting $100 in Social Security checks or unemployment checks, right? What we do is we don't count $20, so we count $80. So if your check is $750, we're just going to subtract $80, not $100, because we're going to not count the $20, okay? So there's a $20 exclusion for unearned income and an $85 exclusion for earned income, and then whatever's left, we divide it by half, and that's what we subtract for a person that's working, okay? Very important to understand because most people don't like getting letters stating they're overpaid. Now, the next slide talks about assets. Okay, so what are the assets that we count? We count bank accounts, we count stocks and bonds, a second car if you have a second car, life insurance, and property where you don't live. We don't count a home in which you live. So if you bought a house or you have a family member that you inherited a house from, that's fine. As long as you live in it, we're not going to count it against you. If you have a car, we understand you need a car to move around. It's a hardship if you don't have a car, so you'll be able to keep your car. Burial plots for self and family. So if you have a burial plot, and also some resources set aside for burial, meaning if you have $1,500 or so set aside with a burial plot, we don't count $1,500. Also, if you receive life insurance, the cash value of the life insurance is what we count. We don't count the face value, but we count the cash value. And with the cash value, we will exclude up to $1,500 for burial. So, but for your total assets, you can't have more than $2,000 if you're single or $3,000 if you're married. So that's your assets. The next slide talks about living arrangements. Now, living arrangements, we have them in different categories. We got to see if you're living in someone else's home, right? If you're living in your own home, if you're paying your own bills, if you're just bumming around from place to place, if you're in an institution, let's say you're in a hospital for more than 30 days or a nursing home, or if you're in a group care or board care facility. So everybody's situation is different. If a person is living in your home and they're not paying bills, then they're essentially living their rent free. They're still going to get something, but they're not going to get the full amount, right? Or if you have somebody who's living in your home over the age of 18 and are paying their share of the bills, maybe they're working, or maybe their SSI check helps pay for it, then we will look at that differently. Everybody's situation is different. So we do look at all of that. Now, the next slide talks about reporting responsibilities. Okay, so the biggest thing I want you to take away from this one is that you definitely need to let us know within 10 business days of any changes that occur. Now, the next slide are all the changes. That's a lot of changes. So I'm going to say this on this next slide. What I'm going to say is we look at everything, right? As you can see, we're looking at address changes, living arrangement, if you've moved in and out, if somebody else has moved in and out, change in resources, if you started working, if you had a death in the family, if you've gone to jail, if you've left the country, everything I talked about. Now, you would contact us by contacting the local Social Security office, and you can call us on the phone and you could do these types of changes. So, or if you're working, obviously you can report that online, but definitely you can contact us. Again, I can't stress it enough. We're open Monday to Friday, 9 to 4. You can call us using the ssa.gov/locator link, put in the zip code, definitely give us a call and we can update these things. So we're still available to do that. No matter what you hear, Social Security offices are only closed for walk-in, but we are available on the phone. Okay, and we can even see you in certain cases. Now, the next slide talks about SSI for children, which is, we consider a person who's a child under the age of 18. Now, where it says under the age of 22, we're looking at school records. If a person is over the age of 18 or above, we're not looking at parents' income, okay? But if they're under the age of 22, we are looking at school records, because at that point, they're probably a student. We can't look at their work if they're not at work right now, if they're not working. So that's what that means. But if they're over the age of 22, where it comes for income and resources and living arrangements, we're not looking at parents at that point, okay? The next slide talks about requirements. If they're under 18 and the child has a physical or mental impairment or a combination that results in marked or severe limitation functioning. So again, we look at school records, doctor's records, things like that. The child must be blind or disabled. If the child is blind, he or she must meet the same definition of blind as it is for adults, okay? The next slide talks about more requirements for children. Disabled children living in households with limited income and resources. If we look at parents' income, so if you have a child living with a grandparent or an aunt or uncle, we're not looking at their income. We're only looking at parents' income. So if you have a child that gets child support, of course, we're going to look at that. But if we're looking at parents' wages, if parents are working, now everybody's household is different. You might have one parent working, you might have two parents working, you might have no parents working, you might have one parent household, you might have two parent household, you might have 5 kids, or you might have just the one kid. So we can't say across the board every child is going to be the same, because we're looking at parents' income. It's a little bit more complicated than just an adult, right? Now, again, disabled children living in households with limited income and resources may be eligible. Again, we're only looking at parents. For eligibility, the income and assets of the disabled child and parents living in the household are assessed. Children's income could be child support. If parents are receiving Social Security, the child support they get from the child benefits they get from the parent's record, that's also counted. Because if a parent is receiving benefits and the child is getting $800 from the parent's record, then they might not qualify for SSI, right? And then we're looking at gifts, if children get monetary gifts on a monthly basis. The next slide reminds you about deeming. And as I mentioned, the process of determining how much of a parent's income and resources will count, that we count as deeming. So again, of course, this is if a child is under 18 and they live at home with their natural or adoptive parents. So if they live at home with a grandparent, an aunt or uncle, that does not matter. If they live away at school, but come home some of the weekends or holidays, or something like that, we're going to see how much during the month, when is the child with the parents versus in school, because they might be in school full time, right? The next slide talks about what happens when they turn 18. Let's say you have a child that was receiving benefits under the age of 18, they qualified. What happens when they turn into an adult? Well, two things. We do a financial review because we have to see if they have their own income and resources and what their living arrangement is once they turn 18, of course, because now they're an adult. And then we also do a medical review because we're no longer looking at school records and child criteria. Now we're looking at work and regular, like, as adult criteria. So we make a new disability determination, and we no longer count the income and resources of the parent. If the child lives with the parent but does not pay for food and shelter, we might lower it because they're living in someone else's home, right? Or if they are meeting their share, then we'll be able to keep it the same. But if you haven't filed for a child until they've turned 18, you can actually file for the child the day they turn 18 or the month they turn 18, and you can do that online. So that's something you can do as well. Now, the next few slides, I'm going to go ahead and briefly go over SSI and foster children. So a disabled youth transitioning out of foster care may file an SSI application if they live in a foster care situation, if they have a blindness or a disability, and it appears that they're going to meet all the non-medical eligibility requirements when foster care payments terminate. It expects foster care payments to cease within 180 days of filing. So again, that's about 4 or 5 months before they lose that foster care check, because the SSI check could then take over once they turn 18, right? So we ask you to do it a few months ahead of time. Now, the next slide talks about homelessness. A transient is an individual with no permanent living arrangement. So it's not like for a child that living with their parents, they're not really considered homeless because they don't have a fixed place of residence. A transient is neither a member of a household nor a resident of an institution. If you are homeless, you can receive Social Security, SSI, or Social Security benefits by having them deposited into your bank account, by getting the Direct Express card, because we do have a Direct Express card you can order. That way you have a debit card. It's a MasterCard. You could use it wherever MasterCard is used, and the money is put on there like a prepaid debit card. It's through Co-America Bank, so you can ask for that. Or you can have a third party or a relative who has a stable address, be it. But the individual, does not have a stable address. They're in a shelter or something like that. Now, the next slide talks about how do you apply for SSI as an adult. So you can begin the process and complete a large part of your application online. You can complete it if you're between the ages of 18 to 65. You've never been married, you're a U.S. citizen, and you've never applied for benefits in the past. You got to go through that website I told you, ssa.gov/disability, the link that I showed you earlier. That's what you would use in order to move towards SSI. What you would do is you would apply like you're filing for regular Social Security disability, like you've worked and paid into it. So you'd go to ssa.gov/disability. But then what you would do is, and the question that they ask, are you interested in filing for supplemental security income? You're going to say yes. And you're going to go ahead and go through the financial need questions, okay? Definitely do that if you can. If you can't, that's okay. You can call us. The next slide talks about to schedule an appointment. You can call 1-800, that's supposed to be 772-1213. You can call your local office. And again, that's www.ssa.gov/locator. Okay, you can complete the online child disability report at socialsecurity.gov/child disability report as well if you want a cheat sheet. Okay, the next slide talks about the Ticket to Work program. And as I mentioned, this is at no cost. So if you have a child or an adult who is getting Social Security or Supplemental Security Income disability benefits, and they want free vocational rehab, free training, this is available to them for free. Most disability beneficiaries are eligible to participate in the Ticket to Work program and can select an approved provider of their choice to help them. So this is a great resource available to them. The next slide talks about other related slides, and I'm going to go right into what is the first one? The first one is able. Now we're not able, we're Social Security, right? But we do understand there's a lot of our beneficiaries have an able account, right? So some background. It was signed December of 2014. It allows certain individuals with disabilities and their families to save money in a tax advantage savings plan, like the college 529 college savings account. It limits eligibility to individuals who become disabled before turning 26. And again, it has to be administered by ABLE. The next slide just talks about you can save up to $100,000 in your ABLE account without affecting your benefits. Money in ABLE accounts can cover qualified disability expenses such as housing, education, healthcare, transportation, job training, personal service, support services. So definitely, and technology. So it's definitely helpful for those that have a disability. The next slide talks about that it's currently 40 states, available in 40 states and Washington, D.C. So again, this is just more information. Our website also has a spotlight on ABLE, so there's a link for that as well. And again, so this should be helpful to you. The next slide talks about the differences between Medicaid and Medicare. Now, this is important because this is also used interchangeably. Medicaid is state health insurance program for people with limited income and resources. In most states, children who qualify for SSI or Supplemental Security Income, as I mentioned, get Medicaid. And in many states, Medicaid is automatic with SSI eligibility. In Virginia, because it's a Commonwealth, you do have to apply for it separately. For example, in Georgia, you don't, it's automatic. In Texas, you don't, it's automatic. But in Virginia, you do have to you do have to go to social services separately to qualify once you get eligible for your SSI, your Supplemental Security Income benefits. Now, Medicare is federal, that's your Social Security, and that's your federal health insurance program for people that are either 65 or older. If you're on regular Social Security disability because you worked and paid into it enough, after 24 months of being on Social Security, you'll be eligible for Medicare, so you don't necessarily have to be 65. If you get diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease, or if you're going through kidney dialysis, you can also get Medicare early. So Medicare isn't just for people that are 65. It could be for anybody who is receiving Social Security benefits that have been on it for 2 years with their disability, or dialysis as well. The next slide talks about, it's the same thing. The slide after that is representative payees. Now, I'm sure most people on this call are parents of a child that might be needing assistance. Social Security's representative payment program appoints a relative, a friend, or other interested party to serve as a representative payee who receives and manages the Social Security or SSI benefits for anyone who cannot manage or direct the management of his or her benefits. We do an investigation for those who apply to be representative payees to protect the interests of Social Security beneficiaries, because a representative payee receives the beneficiary's payments and is given the authority to use them. So obviously we want to make sure the money is by a trustworthy person. We do have a representative payee portal accessible with the My Social Security account that lets representative payees conduct their own business and manage direct payment. Wage reporting, of course, if a person is working, the payee has to tell us that they're working, so they would have to do the wage reporting, and annual reporting for beneficiaries. You got to know their needs, okay? So that's how we need to know that this person can actually be their payee, because we want to make sure it's used for their well-being, especially if the person doesn't live with the beneficiary, right? Any changes that need to be reported for SSI or Social Security, we need to know about that. And if you're not a parent, you usually have to do a form, a rep payee accounting form. Now, the next slide is something that is new. It happened during COVID, unfortunately, during March of 2020, but it's a good thing. Effective March of 2020, advanced designation of representative payees allows a beneficiary to designate in advance up to 3 individuals that they want to be their payee. So let's say you have an adult who is filing for benefits either online or with the office on the phone, or even in person whenever we're back up in person. And we're going to ask them, do you have anyone in case you need a payee? Like an emergency contact, right? In case you need a payee, do you have 3 people that you want to nominate? And they're going to say yes. So that's a designation, right? Of course, adult and emancipated minor applicants and beneficiaries of Social Security or SSI who do not have a representative payee could qualify for this. If a person is under the age of 18, they're going to have a payee because they can't handle their own checks. But once a person is over 18 and they feel like they might need one, once they're taking their claim even, they would provide 3 people that they trust. And then, they can even change it. Let's say they get approved and they don't need a payee, but they know in the future they might need one. Maybe they might have dementia or Alzheimer's or whatever. They can always change it up because relationships change, right? Things happen. So they could change up their payee too, their future payee as well. So that's just a Social Security disability information in a nutshell. If you have any questions, again, you're more than welcome to, I think there's a chat box, so I guess I'll answer them from the chat box. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I really appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to open up the webinar to the Q&A questions. Lisa, could you read the questions that she has for her?
Sure. The first one is, do you need to set up an account for an 18-year-old with special needs under the child's name or under the parent's name?
It would be under the child's name. It could be under the child's name. It doesn't have to be under the parent's name. The parent should have one too, just for themselves. But it would be under the child's name, the beneficiary's name. Yep.
Okay. Would it be available if a person has been diagnosed with cancer?
Yes. Yes. It's for anybody, disability, anyone that's going to be, the condition has to last for over a year, or is expected to last for over a year, or result in death. So absolutely, yes. Any and all conditions. Yeah.
If you've already have an open case with DARS, can that speed up the application process?
No. I mean, you would tell us that you are working with DARS based on the disability. That would be part of your application when we ask you about education or medical records. You would definitely give us that information so we can get the information from DARS. But no, it's not something that would be, that could be expedited. This is a different department. So yeah.
Okay, if your child is currently pending a SPED review for school, is the child eligible for an application, or should I wait for the SPED review to be closed within 2 weeks?
No, go ahead and file. There's no reason for you not to file. I mean, any IEPs, anything like that, anything you have from the school, report cards, anything will help. So go ahead and file for benefits as soon as you feel like your child might need to file for benefits. Again, if they're under 18, we're looking at parents' income and resources. So there's not a guarantee that the child might get it. A lot of times parents will wait until their child is 18 because we no longer look at those non-medical requirements. But both requirements need to be met, non-medical and medical. But absolutely, you can file as soon as you like. You don't need to wait for anything.
Okay, and I think there was a page where someone stated that they saw that by the year 2035, the plan will be depleted or exhausted. Do you know anything about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I will say that Social Security, they've definitely made a lot of changes so if nothing was done, then it would be 2035, but they have been making changes within the Social Security program. Not everybody hears about it. Like if you remember, 65 used to be the it age, right? 65, you used to file for your retirement, you filed for your Medicare, and you were done. Now, full retirement age for somebody who's born after 1960 is 67, and usually it's 66, right? For anybody born after 1954. So again, full retirement amounts change, right? Full amount age has changed. Also, there's certain benefits that people could file for before that it's restricted now. You're not going to see that in the news because it doesn't affect everybody. It affects mostly retirement beneficiaries and their spouses, but they are making changes. Like there's a thing called file and suspend that older Americans, like older people can do when they turn full retirement age. They can't do that anymore. So in 2016, a lot of these things were taking place, and of course they're going to still continue to do it because there's so many people dependent on Social Security that they can't just do away with the program. So no, I don't see any big changes happening. I mean, I see big changes happening, but it's not going to be something that's going to be on the news because it affects certain age demographics and spouses and things.
Okay, thank you. Now, is the guide for income restrictions for SSI for children under the age of 18? So is there a guide that someone can go to?
Well, there is a deeming chart that is on our website. So you can do that. I can possibly email you that as well sometime tomorrow. There is a deeming chart that we have available. But again, like I said, everybody's situation is different. It's just going to say if you have two parents working or one parent working, and how many parents are in the household, how many kids are in the household, what their income is, what people's resources are. So all of that, goes into play. But absolutely, I can send you the deeming chart sometime tomorrow, so you'll have access to that, and you can send that out to participants. Yeah, sure.
Okay. Now, someone states that their child is 17, has cerebral palsy, and is in a wheelchair full time, going to college in the fall. Would they qualify now? And would that be a good thing for them to do, or should they wait to apply when she turns 18?
Well, I mean, if they're 17 years old, remember we're looking at parents' income if they're living with their parents. If they're under 18, of course, we no longer look at parents' income. Depends if they're going to college, or they're going to be in college full time, then they can definitely let us know that, the child is not going to be living with their parents full time because they're going to be in college. That's before they turn 17, before they turn 18. But once they turn 18, it's pretty much automatic. We're no longer looking at parents' income. So it kind of depends on their income situation and what their college situation will be, if it's before 18 or not.
Okay. Does DARS assist with deciding what individual is eligible for and providing guidance for filing instructions?
No, the office can do that. That's what Social Security is for. So, like I said, you're more than welcome to give us a call. We'll be able to help you with that. DARS we're really, the chapter of DARS is Disability Termination Services, and they work with Social Security. So the main people you want to work with is Social Security. Again, you can contact us. Office hours are Monday to Friday, 9 to 4. We always have reps available. And again, the locator link, which I'll send to you tomorrow as well as a follow-up, is going to be www.ssa or socialsecurity.gov/locator. Put in your zip code and you'll be able to get the local phone number. Again, we have the blue book that tells you about the doctors. We have the red book for the work. And I'll also send you the questionnaire that we also ask for adults and children. So you will have those links as well. So I'll send all of that to you as a follow-up, and you can get it out to participants as well. Absolutely.
All right, that will be great. Now, someone stated that they were told that they had to actually physically go to the Social Security office to find out what spousal benefits they would get at retirement. The person was married more than 10 years and has been divorced for years and single. Can this now be done over the phone?
Yes, you can. You don't have to ever go into the office. Whoever gave you that information was incorrect. We were always available on the phone. Now more so, everything is done on the phone, but we were always available on the phone. So absolutely, you can either do it on the phone or, well, you can't do it online because you got to know your spouse's information, right? Your ex-spouse's information. They probably don't want to give you that. So definitely you can. If you have their social security number and your social security number, call us. Again, 1-800-772-1213, or you can go to SSA socialsecurity.gov/locator, put in your zip code, get the phone number. Call us tomorrow, Monday to Friday, 9 to 4. Absolutely, you can call us.
All right, and we have one last question. Does access to TRICARE resources tend to eliminate applicants?
No, TRICARE has nothing to do with Social Security. We only look at income. So remember, if you're getting any VA benefits or something and we're looking at SSI, needs-based program, then yes. But when you're talking about regular Social Security disability insurance, that should not affect any income, does not affect that because you worked and paid into it, right? Those green and white statements that you get and how much your disability would be if you filed based on your work, or your child could get based on your work. We no longer look, like I said, SSI, supplemental security income, is based on need. So again, we're looking at income, resources, and living arrangement. Any other insurance, like TRICARE is an insurance, we do not, that does not affect SSI at all. Neither does it affect Social Security disability.
Okay, and someone did ask if tonight's presentation will be available, if the slides will be available. We will place this on our YouTube channel, so that will be available for parents to access at that time. Eunice, I'd like to turn it back over to you. I think we've answered all of our questions for tonight.
Okay, thank you. This concludes our webinar on Social Security disability. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact your local Social Security office, or you can go to the website, as Lizna has said, www.ssa.gov. That's www.ssa.gov. Thank you for joining us this evening. Remember, families and communities work better together.